Well, welcome everyone. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Lama Losang. He is the spiritual director here of KTC Jacksonville and also the head of Gainesville Karma Kagyu Jacksonville as well. Earlier I had mentioned all of his wonderful accomplishments besides being a Lama and a monastic of the Karma Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. He also has a degree in psychology and a doctorate, and is Mama. Is it a doctorate in Tai Chi and acupuncture and acupressure?
Um, it is a PhD in psychology from the University of Florida. You really don't have in the martial arts. We really don't have degrees like that. I've been teaching for a long time, and in acupuncture, it's called a master's degree.
That's excellent. So, Lama is very multifaceted, in addition to being a wealth of knowledge about the Buddhism that we practice here. So, we're happy to have him. I provided a few short questions to him offline, but this is really what our Buddhism Basics class is about. It's about asking questions and learning about our foundational knowledge here, as well as asking questions of Lama Losang. If you have any questions about your own practice, or just questions, that are about Buddhism in general, please feel free to ask. And you can also put those questions in the chat as well.
He does like questions.
Thank you, Lama.
Yeah, we want this to be interactive, so this is the opportunity to get those questions answered about your personal practice, or confusion that you might have about the Dharma, or things that you've been reading. It could be the book study that you're doing, but it could be other things you're reading as well. So it's pretty wide possibilities for our discussion. So where would you like to start?
Um, I think probably the biggest thing that's on everybody's mind right now is, we've just gotten through an election, and there's all sorts of emotions. For some people they're good emotions, for others they're bad. Some people feel let down, others feel that the end of the world is coming. Um, so, what's the Buddhist point of view on how we should be handling all of this during this
Well,
time?
that's a very good question. But this is, as we say, where the rubber meets the road as far as our practice goes. Things are impermanent, as you may be aware. So because all things are impermanent, suffering is a part of life. And the true nature of all things is freedom. And we have freedom to practice, we have freedom to study, um, and to deeply understand these principles, even in the midst of political turmoil, is to practice Buddha Dharma. And that is really what we should focus on. The external world is in a constant uh, change and flux. This is not new to the planet. We could take, for example, centuries ago, Chan Master Mazu Doye. He lived 709 to, I think, to the latter part of 788. But he taught that our so-called ordinary mind is the way. And after the devastating An Lushan rebellion of that time, which involved 8 years of political, social, economic, and intellectual upheaval during the Tang Dynasty. This insurrection resulted in 36 million deaths, drastic migrations, and infrastructural collapse that weakened the Tang Empire dynasty. leading to its eventual demise. And so he said that practitioners must have ordinary mind amidst such chaos and despair. So what does this teaching mean in light of our own time? Working with change allows us to be creative, resourceful, and adaptive, as it is said. And this so-called ordinary mind, which is the mind free of all its obscurations, its natural mind, our Buddha nature, recognizes that difficulties are opportunities for us to practice. You may not see this as opportunity, but that's how it should be taken. We too are living in a period of great unrest, fueled by the political ideologies. So it is routine, we can say, for politicians to advance their agendas and for their own political gain. And this is not new at all. And I know it's disappointing for a lot of people. It was disappointing to me as well. But we live in samsara, the world of suffering. And sentient beings here are born out of ignorance. We have to tame our mind. We have the opportunities. We have very great good fortune to be born actually in this time. And we are relatively free to practice. We don't suffer from illnesses. We have a roof over our head. We have all the resources we need to practice, and we should take advantage of this. So it is natural for things to go other than we have planned. So it's common for people to be selfish and want to, do others in who don't agree with us. And everybody is living out their own narrative, as it is said. But we have to see the bigger picture and our great good fortune. So we typically, people see things from this self-referential lens, driven by, our own attractions and aversions and gain and loss, the 8 worldly desires, as you're familiar with. So, that's what I would say about that. And there's lots of things that we can do, as far as our Buddhist practice goes, to overcome anxiety and stress and the related presidential elections. And some of those things are to practice mindfulness, and meditation, engage in mindful breathing and meditative mind to reduce anxiety. Focus on the present moment and observe our thoughts, without judgment. Yes, anger may arise, anxiety may arise. These are thoughts, feelings, emotions that human beings have. But we don't focus our awareness on those things. We know that this is the human aspect of being human. We have these feelings and emotions, but we don't let them override our Buddha nature. That is a huge obstacle and interferes with our practice. So we don't want to let that happen. So this is a challenge, but I would say these challenges or difficulties are opportunities to see where we are and not to get pushed off balance during times of stress. Comment? For those individuals who are there or online, yeah.
One of our practitioners was very upset and very verbal about it. And he had recently taken the Bodhisattva vow from Lama Karma Dodo. And I said, hey, you just took the Bodhisattva vow, this is where our practice is. We should behave like bodhisattvas. We we need to have love and compassion, even for someone who you think might be destroying the world or, upsetting everyone. This person deserves your compassion as well. And I kind of got the side eye and said, well, that can't be done. I said, well, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but, and I, that reminder of, the mother has 5 kids and one of the kids is really sick. The mother pays more attention to the sick child, gives more love, more compassion to that child. And that when we see someone behaving rudely and disrupting everything, to see that person as being sick, that they're not well. Well people don't behave certain ways. And that this person, because they're not well, deserves compassion. And I just kind of think it just got blown by. It's a hard concept at certain times I think for beginners in particular, but I think even seasoned practitioners get that knee-jerk reaction of regret or aversion, and before we pull back and start thinking about this from a bodhisattva point of view.
Well, that's correct. This, politics by its very nature is outcome-oriented activity, as it is said, and goals are often driven by self-oriented interests and views. Bodhidharma, the Buddha Dharma is, however, the opposite of that. It is living in accordance with it and requires that we not be fixed on self-oriented outcomes. This is what we want, and we must act and respond to injustice and society's ills, but we must do so with equanimity, with a peace of mind, not with agitation, free of mental hindrances, which those negative emotions, kleshas, as you say, are constant, our habits, these habitual patterns. We do what needs to be done and can be done in a given situation, not for ourselves, but for the benefit of all beings, and we still have that opportunity. Nothing is stopping us from doing that. And there may be suffering that occurs, and we will do what we can to alleviate or ameliorate that suffering. Working with change allows us, again, to be creative, resourceful, and adaptive to the situation. And so I'm going to again say that we recognize the difficulties are opportunities for our Dharma activity. So we strive to do that. So, and for those who have taken bodhisattva vows, that is to think poorly of someone else is a violation of your bodhisattva vows. You wish for their ultimate enlightenment, and you know that karma exists, and there will be a natural karmic consequence for unskillful action. You don't have to, make that happen. It will happen by its nature for that individual, based on the intent and motivation of the action of that person. So not that we stand by idly, but that we do the best we can to cultivate bodhicitta in these times of distress. And that actually is a remedy, to the situation. Our mindfulness and meditation, our loving kindness and compassion, that transforms our thought to a higher level. And Buddhist psychology techniques like exchange of self for others, Tonglen, or doing those practices. This is the time we need to employ those. And there are many skillful activities that we can do, but like we say, we don't want to shoot ourselves with a second arrow. We may be upset, but we can really ruminate and be obsessed by these things, which really takes us down the rabbit hole and does no service to our own practice or helps anyone else. So we have to be mindful. We have to be conscious. We have to be bodhisattvas, so that is what's called for. And yes, it's not hard. The world would be very different if I mean, it is difficult. The world would be very different if everyone acted in that way. But clearly, it's not that way because people are so self-centered and egotistic, and are looking out after their own welfare instead of that of others. But that's not what we're going to do. You know, we understand that we all have this Buddha nature, but it is so obscured by our karmic causes, our kleshas, our habitual patterns, that we just create more karma for ourselves, more negative karma that is going to manifest itself later down the road, one way or another, in this life or some future life. So we have an opportunity really to see clearly and to act effectively and in harmony with our Buddha nature. If you're upset, you are not in harmony or aligned with your Buddha nature.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How do you show I haven't taken any vows, but how do you show compassion towards someone who you believe would want harm done unto you, or would believe that that is something that wishes harm onto you, or someone you love, someone you care about?
How would you answer that question for yourself? I mean, are you familiar with the Dharma? Have you been a practitioner for some time? You may not have taken vows, but have you been involved with the Dharma?
Yeah, I was involved with Shambhala for quite some years, and then the new Kadampa tradition for a little while.
What would they say about that?
Well, I know what they would say in Kadampa, to understand that they're coming from a place of that of suffering, of delusion, essentially.
Yes, ignorance. And that they will pay the price for that ignorance. So again, this is a karmic situation. So creating more karma by meeting aggression with the attitude of creating suffering for someone else is really just going to put fuel on the fire, isn't it? So I think you've answered your own question.
I also have another question. It has to do with standing up for yourself and being assertive while being compassionate at the same time.
Yes, it has to do with your intention. Absolutely, you're not a rug to be stepped on, or so. No, you stand up for yourself, and you stand up for all those who stand up for themselves to a certain way, and you're congruent with your own moral, ethical vow. Or well, it's not necessarily vows; it's just our Buddha nature. But we do ethics and morality seems to have gone down the drain. But that doesn't mean that we follow that same path. We have to cultivate virtue, and that is the seed of our enlightenment. So whether it's the six paramitas, the virtues that the Bodhisattva follows to attain enlightenment, to attain the highest state of that a human can attain, or that any being can attain, it requires understanding, it requires skill, and it requires contemplation. So we say we hear it, that is one thing. And then we contemplate it until we really understand it, and then we practice it. So that is the sequence of events. First, we have to, you have the great good fortune of being in the stream of the Dharma. And so you have read, you've studied. Now we have to practice it. We've got to make it our own. And as we do that and get stronger in it, that just grows. It's like a seedling. At the beginning, we just really have to nourish it, give it what it needs, so it doesn't perish. But in the same way, our Dharma activity has got to be fed as well. And so we feed that compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta, and it will grow. But it doesn't mean that you demean yourself or that you put yourself in harm's way. And if you do some act, you do it with total neutrality. You're not with the intention of doing harm to anyone, unless the martial arts, for example. The idea is to avoid a conflict. And the soft style martial arts, Aikido, and those kinds of things, you disengage that person's energy and throw them or stop them from engaging in a negative action, whether it's toward you or toward someone else. But you're still have the compassion aspect of it, because if they engage in that negative action, they're just going to create more karma for themselves, and they're going to suffer dearly. As you said, they're suffering to engage in that activity to begin with, but they're just heaping suffering on top of suffering.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just not to get in an argument with them, but to kind of like, if somebody like says something to you that they wish harm upon you, or somebody you care about, just I don't agree with that, and state the reason why you don't agree with that, and kind of let it go, I guess you could say.
Well, words are one thing, action is another, and people can say all kinds of things. And we can say, "Oh, how could they say that to me?" And then we get all ruffled up. We have to understand emptiness. Who are we? I mean, we are empty of any. This is not easy from a philosophical point of view to accept this particular position of emptiness. But that is the level of Mahamudra. It's the highest level of the practice of a Buddha, is to understand emptiness, wisdom, which is synonymous with wisdom, and compassion. Those things are, as we say, are the two wings of the bird. And we try to be as skillful as we can be, and that requires a certain level of wisdom to know how to act in a particular situation. Often it is we act out of our ignorance, we act out of our protecting this ego, or so it requires a certain level of wisdom to know how to act in certain situations. And that's why we practice to cultivate bodhicitta, loving kindness and compassion. And that is the underlying fuel for our action.
I always heard it said that when someone says harmful things or threatens violence, it says everything about them. It says nothing about you. If someone calls you names, or someone threatens you or makes threats towards someone you love, they are showing you who they are, but it has nothing to do with who you are.
And it certainly is weakness. It doesn't come from a position of strength. I mean, it can be, an exercise in power to have influence over you, or scare you, or to have you do something that they would like for you to do. But that is your choice. And you certainly don't have to do it out of fear, and then we get to check ourselves, how we function in the world. Are we acting out of fear? Are we acting out of wisdom? So that is a very important realization. Again, opportunity.
And that's really sounds like the true definition of mindfulness, Lama, that we're really examining ourselves before we act, to see, is this something we're doing out of compassion or something we're doing out of our own.
Yes, and we should be doing that every day. We don't have to be threatened to do that, but we respond, out of habit in so many ways. But we do, and most of us don't have freedom. I mean, it is just a knee-jerk response. Someone says this or does this, and we respond like this. There's no space, for freedom. It is just a knee-jerk response. So yes, you're absolutely right. So with wisdom comes freedom.
So I'm quite new to the Dharma. Is all suffering karmic? And if so, on an individual level, is like an individual who's going through suffering, is that seen as like karma running its course, sort of?
Well, even suffering is a very relative term. A person, we say sometimes that they have a threshold for pain. Some people have a high threshold for pain. Pain is one thing, suffering is another. So what causes suffering for one is not necessarily going to cause suffering for others. The level of our suffering is the degree of our attachment generally, whether it's to ourselves, to someone else, to some situation. And that's what causes the suffering.
Okay. So I guess in a situation where, like, let's say a society is going through something and there are lots of individuals who are suffering, and it's outside of our control as an individual to like affect that situation, is that like what is the view on that? Are we supposed to see it sort of as like this is karma coming back from past situations, or what it may be, or how, what's the view on like atrocious acts?
Generally, it is karma. But when we say that, it's not a judgment. We all, since beginning of this time, we've been creating karma for ourselves since beginningless time. That's a long time. We've created a lot of karma, good, bad, and ugly. And so, yes, generally, it is a reflection of our karma. And if you want to know, about your past karma, look at your present situation. We have had some good karma to be born human, to be in the situation we are. It's not war torn. We're not fighting, fires. We're not in flooded situations. We're in relatively good health. And we live in a situation that is really superior to most of the rest of the world. This is karma. We've had the good fortune of being born in this situation, and we have come in contact with the Dharma. How many people have done that? Well, not many, but how many people actually practice the Dharma in terms of those who have come into the Dharma? Not less still. So it is a matter of freedom. It is a matter of choice. It's a matter of wisdom and understanding. So all those things, as I say, the suffering, two people can experience the same thing, and the level of suffering is the degree of the attachment, whether it's to your body with pain, with a diagnosis of this, that, or the next thing. Some people are very graceful and go through that situation with incredible tenacity and courage. Others just fold. They're just can't tolerate it. It's a very individual thing because karma is a very individual thing. I mean, we've been born human, so we have that in common with the rest of the world. And we have a certain additional karma with those living in this country. And we have, we do have a societal, a cultural karma in addition, but it's really individual. And we can't say that the father's sins are cast on the child. No one can influence your karma but you, and no one can influence your karma but you. It is a very individual thing.
So is that how trauma, coming from a psychological point of view, is formed? The attachment?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's your understanding, it's your view of it. Again, people can go through the same trauma, and one have suffer from tremendous PTSD, and another person lives their life. It is a matter of view to a certain degree. Do you know what I mean by view?
I think so. Can you kind of clarify a little bit?
Yes. So, I mean, when we talk about the Dharma, that creates a view of reality, understanding that we have Buddha nature, understanding, for example, the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. We have this precious human birth. We want to use it in the most auspicious way while we have it, because the next thing is impermanence. We don't know how long we have. We know we're all going to die. So if we get that diagnosis, we say, yes, we're all going to die. We have this diagnosis, as everyone will have one way or the other. It comes with birth. And that karma is real. And karma also has to be taken into account so that we're not continually creating more karma for ourselves. It'll be manifesting in future births. And that samsara, the unsatisfactoriness of samsara, we have to understand that samsara will never bring us happiness. So if we're looking for happiness in this world, good luck. It is not going to happen like that. We may get the dream job and then we get fired. We may get the dream, you name it. It changes. Change is the nature of samsara. And most people are not crazy about change. But at any rate, that's what I mean by having the correct view to a degree. I mean, those are just four different things that kind of talk about one's view and things that influence our reality.
Lama, I had someone ask me if what's been going on in the world today would be a manifestation of the Kali Yuga.
Yeah, it's a dark time and it's getting darker. And yes, there are cycles, there are things. To be born at this particular time again is a particular reference to our karma. And yes, there are ebbs and flows. Length of life changes, conditions change, and but it is generally based on the overall karma. We do have some influence on that, but if everyone is thinking for themselves and wanting to get the things for themselves and have no interest or care for their brothers and sisters, that's the Kali Yuga. That is the war and suffering and all those things are going to be enhanced. We're living in not in alignment with our Buddha nature. And the farther we are out of alignment, the more suffering there is, because we're creating a karma that is going to ripen now and in the future.
Thank you, Lama.
So you might say we get what we deserve in a certain kind of way. And if we see the situation politically, this is the nature of our time. This is what people are thinking. This is how people are acting. This is not an accident. But we may not approve of that, and we are going to do the things that are in line. And the closer we are aligned with our Buddha nature, the happier we're going to be, and the better our outcome is going to be, regardless of what happens around us. We're creating our own reality in a way, and there are many multiple different realities happening simultaneously, we could say. It's good to contemplate these, isn't it? I think so. It is true that people are shaped by their upbringing and personal suffering, but our Buddha nature embraces suffering as part of life. That's the view, and that's the Buddha's first. We talk about the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. But the suffering comes from our ignorance, our not understanding, our wrong view. And, not only is there suffering, there's a cause for that suffering. That is how suffering arises, because of the causes that we create. But also the good news is that there's a way out of that suffering. And the Buddha said he was here to end suffering, and that is through the Noble Eightfold Path and following, our Buddha nature. But we definitely need a guide for that. Left to our own devices, and at this point, we haven't done so well since beginning this time. But where there is a way that we can end our suffering. Just as the Buddha did, just as many Buddhas have done, and just as you will do as well. You are destined to be a Buddha just as well. So, I mean, we don't necessarily want to escape suffering. The Buddha said we must know suffering. And once we know suffering, we can take the necessary steps to end it.
That's a difficult pill, Lama.
Well, we have to understand that.
I think on the good side of this, this last week, I was asked to counsel a church administrator and the chaplain for my building, because we were speaking about, this is what's happening. It's your choice on how you view it. If you want to be distressed, but you always tell me, Jobso, you will continue to think this way until you choose not to.
Yeah.
And it seems to be opening up a door, at least in my building. There's a group of about 6 people who asked if they could start doing a Buddhist study group, because they seem to think that, hey, maybe there's a way of handling this without the yelling and screaming, and as the chaplain in my building says, the wailing and gnashing of teeth, as she put it.
Right. That sounds pretty biblical.
But I mean, I live in a building that is primarily Republican, and it's older people, and they're very set in their ways, and they're being very proud of everything that's going on and being rather snippy about it to the few who are openly more loving and kind. And it's causing a schism already in the building, and nothing really at this point has changed. There are no new laws. There's nothing bad really has happened. There is the potential, but there's always potential for something to happen.
Yeah. So we don't want to project into the future. We want to be present with what's going on. I always say we're like time travelers. We're reflecting in the past, the good old days, or with remorse about things we should have, could have, would have done, or projecting into the future with our ideas, which is never the way it comes about, the way we think about it, the way we dream about it. So all we can do really is to be present, with what is. And we use the breath to use as a focal point for grounding us. And when we get really carried away by things, return to the breath, be present. Everything is fine in this present moment. We can project all of our negative things and project all kinds of terrible things, but that's not what's happening right now. Be present with what is.
Lama, it's interesting how a lot of these discussions seem to be people not seeing the suffering of others, no matter what side you're on or you come from. There seems to be a missing of seeing the suffering that's causing whatever person you disagree with to see where their mindset is.
Yeah, our Buddha nature, our ordinary mind, as it is often called, embraces suffering as part of life. For all of us, that is it. But people don't understand that. We want to run away from it. We want to change it. But that's not what the Buddha said. He said we have to accept suffering for what it is, and suffering manifests only when we expect things to be otherwise, which is often the case. Oh, I wish it was this way, or I'll be happy when I get this, or rarely are we in the precious moment of now. So that is wisdom.
any other questions? So I'll keep asking questions.
Go ahead.
Argue with people, it is true that we see this in politics, that the harder one group pushes, the harder is the pushback. And that's just creates more enemies than allies, and all this the sense of self is just magnified and aggrandized, and it just accelerates the whole process. One side or the other, the black and the white. Yeah, you were going to say.
And this is more a question about Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. Did he ever have any insight into the world of politics or political views, or any thoughts on, his view of how American politics functioned, or did he just not pay much attention to it?
Well, he was a victim of politics. I mean, he would run out of his home country, Tibet, because of the politics of China or the Communist Party. And so he knows about politics. He knows what can happen. Monasteries were destroyed, people were killed, and he escaped barely with his life. So yeah, we know what can happen. He knows what can happen. He knows human nature. And until we are neutralize those negative tendencies, this is what we have. This is the human nature of ignorance. This is how it manifests in self-importance, in just looking after number one. So yes, he knew about suffering. He knew about politics. Yeah.
That's definitely, he was set the example though, because, I just felt like you wouldn't have known that he had been pushed out of his own country and had to flee like that, just if you were to meet him, or his equanimity was such that you almost wouldn't have known that he's gone through such a great suffering.
No, there are many stories about that the monks were imprisoned and beaten, and terrible suffering. And there was a story that the Dalai Lama said about one of those people who the Dalai Lama was asking him how he fared, and he said there was just one time that he was really bad, and the Dalai Lama asked him about it, and he said, "Well, I almost lost my bodhicitta for my captors who was beating me," but he maintained his loving kindness and compassion even under that duress. So, I mean, that is beyond anything that we can probably imagine. But that is the level that can be achieved under those circumstances, because that individual, that monk, that Lama knew that this situation, things are impermanent, and that this his captor, or the person inflicting this suffering and pain on him, was suffering himself, and will continue to suffer tremendously, much more than any suffering that he was enduring at that moment. The suffering of the hell realms is significantly different, and to inflict with intention harm on someone else in that way takes you to the lowest realms, which are really terrible, to make a long story short. And so he had compassion for that person, knowing what his fate would become. And that's what the Buddha taught, and that's how he behaved.
A student at KTD, Grace O'Keefe, had posted a teaching that said that don't be hard on yourself in this time if you lose your patience, or that you lose your compassion for a moment, because even Chinrezig had that one moment of doubt, that even bodhisattvas have a moment of doubt.
Yeah. So we know that things are going to change. We must face, these tides of changing politics with hope and action. We don't stop acting in a positive way, and no matter what the situation is. But if it's 4 years, if it's whatever it is, You know, we have freedom, and we can act selflessly and with loving kindness and compassion to benefit beings under any circumstance. So that's the energy that we'd like to cultivate.
I'm so intrigued that, like, from a almost like anthropological point of view, the areas where Buddhism is most prevalent seem to be like the low and middle income areas of the world, or low resource areas where you would think that there is more suffering. And I'm interested because it seems to be that, like, individuals who are born into a situation with lots of good karma, or lots of um, like good fortune rather, seem to be born into these individualistic societies where Buddhism doesn't thrive. And I'm confused by that, I guess. And I guess I don't understand how enlightenment happens if people who are sort of along this journey and are having good fortune are more likely to be born into these more individualistic societies where they're less likely to learn the Dharma. Does that
Well,
make
I
sense?
don't know if they're more likely to learn the Dharma. They're usually more likely to continue to want to have more, and they suffer from greed and power and pride and those kinds of things. Yes, there may be cultures like Tibet that people have a little, but I will say that their happiness is greater. So it just depends on what you're calling good fortune. We don't need what we have right now, and people usually who have all these things want more, and they're not satisfied. They don't really have. They're not grateful, nor are they satisfied. It's always more. They don't have enough. There is a lack, a feeling of lack, not of enough. So I would check that point of view if we're looking at happiness or we're looking at having stuff.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
they're not synonymous, are they?
No, they are not. Having
I
stuff
have
does make you happy. You have to worry about it. You have to, you're greedy about, am I going to lose it? Am I going to get more? What's going to happen when I die? What's going to happen to my stuff? I mean, there's so many things. So the more you have, the more stress it can bring you to a certain degree.
Mika, did you have a question?
Yeah. My question is in regards to interacting with other family members or people in our lives that may have they may be being hateful or having these kind of negative beliefs. I know, for example, my aunt is she's kind of in a way cutting some ties with her mother based on politics and things of that nature. And what's a good way to kind of encourage the people that are in our lives that are having these qualities to help them?
Well, lead by example. Show compassion, loving kindness, and try to be, as present as you can be with them without judgment yourself. One being one way and another one being another way, and taking sides. And everyone is different. Everyone does have different causes and conditions or different karmic predispositions. Even in a family, you may have two kids that are very different. We come in with our own karmic predispositions. We are not all the same. We don't come in tabula rasa, empty or blank slate. We have the karmic predispositions from our past, and everyone is different. So we have to honor that individuality in them, and they're going to be who they're going to be. We can show loving kindness for them in whatever position they take. That is up to them, but it is up to us to just not have judgments about it, and to be as compassionate and show as much loving kindness as we can towards them. And that is probably more likely to be a way that you can influence them than to try to force them to a particular way of thinking, to convert them, so to speak, to another way of being. Good luck. That usually doesn't happen so easily. But you can show loving kindness to them and be supportive of them. And if they're, if they're willing and you have the capacity to teach them, giving the Dharma is the highest generosity, as it said. We can give physical things to people. We can, be very giving, but the highest thing is to help them see the truth of who they are. But a person has to be ready to do that, and you have to be skillful to know how you can do that. And the good teachers are able to do that, and they give the student what they need and the way they can use it. But sometimes we are not so skillful, but we can be non-judgmental anyway, and we can show loving kindness and compassion to both sides. They are coming from their own point of view, and we don't know necessarily. They may come from the same family, but they've experienced things differently in their mind stream. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I personally had a hard time with compassion toward a family member that constantly blames everyone else for their problems and seems to want to hurt everyone they care about. And I always remind myself that they're in a lot of pain, that they're suffering greatly, and that's where that's coming from. But it's still been kind of difficult for me too.
Yeah, if you can really know that and believe that is the case, which I agree with you, it is. No one would act to hurt someone else or disdain or blame. No one wants to take responsibility for things, it seems these days. But we have to take total responsibility for our lives, and until we do that, we're going to continue to suffer. So yes, you're right. He's suffering, or she is suffering, and they will continue to do so if they continue to act in that way. They're creating more karmic seeds for that same thing: rejection and ridicule, or anger towards them. They're getting exactly what they don't want.
Lama, I used to have this idea, and I don't necessarily subscribe to it anymore, but I hear it repeated. Um, it's this idea that people can't change as they get older, and when everything's so constantly changing, that means you can change as well.
Yes, of course. That's like the old thing. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's totally not true. You can teach an old dog new tricks. And a person who has the motivation and has the understanding of, what's causing them suffering. No one wants to suffer. Everyone wants to be happy, but they don't really see the connection of their actions and the suffering that ensues. So it just doesn't follow logically for them. So they continue to act in ways that creates more negative karma, and consequently, that is the source of their suffering. So that is certainly not true. We're changing every moment. Every cell in our body is changing. Every thought we think is changing us. We are not static, and we have the opportunity to change, fortunately, at every moment. We can change anything, anytime. Age does not influence. Habit does, and we are creatures of habit, but that's our choice. That's familiar to us, so we continue to do it. Does it make us happy? Is it positive? Usually not, but it is familiar and it is habit, and we do things that we just continue to do. It's like the needle in the groove of the record. It's just going to go round and round and follow that over and over again. But we can change it at any time. And often the thoughts that we think are just like that. We think the same thoughts again and again and again and again and again. But at any time, we can stop that process. But first we have to be aware of it. That's what meditation is for. It's to be mindful. It's to see the nature of your mind, which is clear awareness. That's the nature of our mind. But do we look inside like that? Generally not.
I found it kind of useful where I live because it's older folks who are habituated to watching programs that just feed into their anxiety. And I've been mentioning with them more and more that, if you want to be healthier, you need to improve your diet. You need to watch what you consume. And everything that we watch on our phones, everything we watch on television, conversations that we have, these are things that we are consuming.
That's right.
To try to get them to change their consumptions a little bit, instead of watching a news program for 3 hours, put on a music channel, something that made them happy, music from the 40s or 50s. Do something to break that cycle of just being in front of a television that has them amped up, to step away from that, to break that habit, to give them something better to consume.
Yes, so they have to see the reason, the benefit for that, and how that affects their mind. So telling them that is good, but they have to have the why. Why should I do that? And that is correct, that feeding those habits, continuing to do that, creates the same kind of pattern over and over again. It's just like, again, the needle in the record. So we can break that habit anytime we choose. The thing is, do we choose to do it or not?
Well, I'm not sure that I've explained to them why I keep suggesting they watch something else. I think it's just I try to approach it from the side because I know approaching things head on just sometimes result in conflict. So it's, hey, why don't we listen to some boogie woogie music, or why don't we listen to some big band music? Because we have a big lounge that has a big television with hundreds of channels. Hey, why don't we put on Gunsmoke? Why don't we put on something that brings them back to a time of being a little happier? And I don't.
You can do that and see how they feel with it, and they will see the difference. But that is, it's cause and effect. So if you can get that to change like that, and then ask follow up with, what do you like best? Do you like that news situation, or do you like the boogie woogie music? And we'll see what they say. But you may have to be a little bit more blunt about the whole situation.
I feel like I have to do the same thing in my family dinners because there is just immediate conflict and trying to drive the conversation away from conflict. Prior to doing however many years of meditating, I was definitely drawn into that conflict very easily. Yeah. Now I can kind of see it for what it is, and now I'm, first I guess I was trying, okay, now I see what it is and how I get drawn in, and now I'm like, okay, now how do we don't have to be conflict all the time. What can we do, like bringing a positive message to kind of bring our minds in a positive direction and have those positive conversations instead of always falling back to a message of conflict.
Yeah, you can do that, but don't expect a result. No expectation.
Yes, no expectation.
No expectation. But if they do it enough times, they might say, "Oh, I think you're right."
That's yes. I certainly am attached to my expectation.
Yeah. You want them to be happy. You don't want them to be fighting. You don't want them to have views that are, are causing them suffering and sickness. Negative thoughts they create a real negative pattern, in our mind stream and affect our physical body. They affect our activities in the world. So, I mean, they have wide, sweeping consequences, but people don't relate or don't see those consequences, the causes and effects that occur from actions. And until they do, they'll continue to do the same thing because it's habit. These are the kleshas, these are habitual patterns. So it is not easy to change those until you see them clearly yourself. Being told one thing is not wisdom. It doesn't change anything until they hear it, they see it, and they put it into practice. Same as for us. We have to hear it and study it and see if it works, put it in practice.
It's interesting about that because their whole pages online, for example, that are rage bait, people just make posts to get reactions from people that are negative because it's something that's so engaging, even though people would know in their mind that they may feel better, like watching something positive. It's like this draw, or that it's almost like stimulating in a way to have that strong emotional reaction towards something where it's like people get hooked on it. It's interesting.
Yeah, gets the adrenaline going, they feel alive, and then they react with more anger and more vehemence, and that just fuels the fire. And that is not skillful if we're trying to purify our mind stream of negative emotions. That is just fueling those negative emotions, and it creates conflict for ourselves, and negative emotions, hatred, anger, all those kinds of things. And people, there are people who really, as you say, they seem to thrive on that. But those consequences are very negative in so many ways and will ultimately cause dis-ease of one kind or another. Yeah.
Another thing I found myself trying to not fall into the trap is like, okay, you know, your decision, it's the idea that you're going to get what you deserve, because I don't think that's the way. That's not the way of a bodhisattva. It's not the way of compassion. I don't want you to get any pain or suffering. I want you to be happy at the end of the day. And who am I to say, just because one person is elected, I felt like there was a little bit of like, oh, well, all right, this is the way things are going to go. But, you're going to get to really see how it's going to happen now. But I've been telling myself more and more, no, whoever is the president of this country and whoever is in power, I want them to actually succeed and bring real benefit to everyone.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be fine. And let's pray and hope that happens like that, and we'll do what we can to assist that happening. But I'm not omniscient enough to tell you how this is going to end in 4 years. If he's going to be alive to see this, someone else is going to do. We don't know from what the future is going to bring. I don't know what the future is going to bring. I can tell you that. But there may be some positive things that result from it as well. But there's only so much I think that he is going to be able to do. And we're talking, about the current political situation. So we'll just have to see how it unfolds. I know there's a plan but we'll see. I mean, the cost of doing his immigration, the sending immigrants out, we'll see how he can do that, if he can do that. We'll see. I mean, a lot of the things that he promises, he's not going to be able to do, for starters. But we'll see. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't think anyone knows what that's going to be. But we have certain ideas, and there's a lot of people saying certain things. But let's be present. Let's do our own work, and let's evolve. Our own consciousness to the best that we can, and that's the only way that we can be of a lasting, true benefit to anybody. Is to try to become a bodhisattva or a Buddha ourselves, and that is the only way we're going to be of value in the future. So that is our work, regardless of what happens on the exterior. That is all like a dream anyway. And how that dream unfolds remains to be seen.
I mean, the Venerable Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche said that anytime we face any type of difficult emotions, that this becomes fuel for the fire. This becomes the reason we practice. This just means that we have to practice more. We have to practice with more diligence. That this just gives us a reason to practice, not to give up our practice, but we need to.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Yeah, and Buddhism offers us powerful insights that can help liberate us from fear and sorrow and give us hope. So would you follow the Dharma? You follow your practice, continue as you say to continue your practice with even more effort, and as we can see, but there's a lot of people who don't do that, and their illusions, their confusion predominate, their ignorance predominates. And that's not a good future for anybody. But we'll try to offset that with our own practice and with our own what we bring to the world. Each of us has some influence. Each of us can do the best we can in our daily activity with others, cultivating virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and taming the mind. That is the Buddhist teaching. So that is still our number one kind of thing. Cultivate virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and tame our mind. So we're not getting lost in all kinds of theories and of one kind or another. Stay present. Yeah. We do have to remember impermanence. Nothing lasts. And so our meditations, our practice, our concentrations, we shouldn't feel like all is lost, by no means, when the situation is not to our liking. We still have the potential and potency to grow and to use this as a fuel to ignite our Dharma practice. Impermanence is the liberating truth, to hold in our sitting and walking meditation practice. No political regime or war or economic system will last forever, however bleak it might look today. Nagarjuna said that thanks to impermanence, everything is possible. And this realization helps us activate an energy of patience and endurance. So we have to keep positive in that way, and it is true. We can activate our own Buddha nature to resolve a lot of our internal dialogue and all of our negative thoughts that can arise. We see it as such and use it as grist for the mill to purify our negative actions, our negative thoughts, and to purify, all those kleshas that wreak havoc on us. It is a catalyst for our own growth, and we don't want to get lost in that negativity. So we can continue, to find a channel for our love and aspiration to build a more and just and beautiful future for ourselves and others. Our love is really the catalyst for our spiritual communities and livelihoods, regardless of the politics. So, I think, we're creating a retreat center in Citra near Gainesville here that'll serve as a lighthouse for people to take shelter from the storm of whether it's politics or all the different things that samsara throws at us. So we have the opportunity to use each of these things as Lama Yeshe would say, manure to help us grow and to attain the height of our capacity, our Buddha nature, to realize that. And we can do that. And so everything serves to further if we have eyes to see it and we have the intention and motivation to use it properly. We have to show up, as they say.
What is that? A new meditation center in Citra, or is it the current one?
No, it'll be a new. It's the Southeastern Buddhist Retreat Center, SEBRC, and you can go to our website, sebrc.org, and check it out. So actually, we're having a fundraiser this Friday to support it and get it rolling. Yeah, there's a number of things that'll be under that umbrella. Our KTC will be there, and a college of Tibetan medicine will be there as well. Yeah, Southeastern Buddhist Retreat Center, sebrc.org. You can check that out. Yeah, I want people to know about that and to participate in that. When we think about positive things that we can do in a time of darkness, as I say, I look at this as a lighthouse to bring some joy and some positive energy forward to help with our cultivating virtue. All right, what else? Anything else on your minds? Was there, are you reading Kempo Rinpoche's Dharma Paths now?
That is correct.
Yeah, we're just now into the introduction to Buddhism. We just started into this book again, and our other book, The Golden Eight-Petaled Lotus, we just will be entering now into chapter 1. We've been through the first part. There were so many things that you did that I did not know about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So you're also reading that book? You're reading my book as well?
yes.
On Saturday mornings.
Oh, on Saturday mornings. Okay, very good. Thank you.
But, the meeting with remarkable men, I kept going through this. And I was like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. He's my teacher. I didn't know this.
No, I don't usually talk about it so much, but I've had the good fortune of having studied with many wonderful teachers. And so it is time to bring that forward. And yeah, this is the first actually of 8 different books. So this is how we used to train physicians. When I say used to, I feel this all came from a dream that I had, as often happens. And that lotus that's on the front of that was presented to me, as I mentioned in the book, I think. And that is an 8-petaled lotus. And that was given to me to reflect all the different aspects of how we train the physicians. It begins with training our own mind. That comes first. So wisdom, compassion, and awakening is the first volume of the series. But other things will happen: herbal medicine, feng shui, astrology, diet, nutrition, all those things will follow. They're already done. I just need to get them published. But great. I'm happy they're using the book. I will know that book if you have questions. Actually, the Rinpoche's book, the Dharma Pass, is such an incredible book. He is so skillful in his writing, and some things you see in my book will look familiar, I'm sure, because of course Khenpo Rinpoche was my teacher as well. He is my w.Lama, and after 3.5 years of training with him, I hope some of that has worn off and onto me. So I'm very influenced by him, as you probably know. But as the introduction there goes, I've had some wonderful teachers in Dharma, in psychology, in martial arts, and different aspects.
Just as Khenpo Rinpoche, kind of rubbed off on you, I really believe here at the center, and particularly myself, that you have rubbed off on me.
Well, good. I hope we have a similar result in that way. From teacher to student, that is how the Karma Kagyu lineage works. It is that lineage, the whispered lineage from teacher to student. So it is a very beautiful lineage. It is the second oldest to the Enigma tradition. And our teachers in this tradition are exceptional, exemplary. And so again, we have the great good fortune of being born at a time when the Buddha's teachings is available. We do have those available. We had wonderful teachers to teach us. Even though the Buddha is not here, we have a lineage that it teaches what the Buddha taught in an unbroken fashion. So our great good fortune is inexpressible and very remarkable in the most positive way. So our karma is good in that regard. And now we just have to follow the teachings, and inevitably the result will happen, because that is been so for hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people since beginning of time have attained liberation and Buddhahood by following these precepts. So have confidence in that. We talk about Vajra pride. Some people say, oh, that was for some other time, I can't do what they did. That is not true. Your Buddha nature is the same as the Buddha's Buddha nature. And we have the same capacity and the qualities to attain the same state as Milarepa did in one lifetime, after killing lots of people in several occasions. He was able to purify that karma and attain perfect Buddhahood. So it is something that is available to us if we were to practice in such a way. That's the kicker. We have to put our time in, and it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're going to be a fabulous world-class musician or physician or you name it, you have to put in the time to practice. So that's up to us. It just depends on your motivation. So all these things that appear as obstacles to us can be turned in a way that they're opportunities. And it is important to really take that attitude to see how we can turn that into opportunity. right, any other questions or comments?
Lama, can you just take a moment? We will be closed on Saturday for practice. Many will be coming to support Lama Karma's weekend teaching. Can you talk just a little bit about what he'll be teaching on at Gainesville KTC and online this weekend?
Yeah, it'll be primarily around Nundro. He'll give the full Nundro reading transmission. He'll talk about Vajrasattva and particularly, Vajrasattva, for purification. That is the second of the Nundro practices, the foundation practices. I think, Michael, would you mute yourself? If you're not muted, there's some noise coming from somewhere. I don't know where that's coming from.
I'm muted.
Okay, thank you. There were some other, okay, it's done now. I guess that might have been KTC. So that is, he'll be talking about the Nundro practices and the Vajrasattva empowerment he will give and talk about the Vajrasattva practice. That is about purification of our kleshas. We were talking about, since beginningless time, we've accumulated these particular negativities in our mind stream that serve as obstacles. They don't really serve, but they are obstacles to our advancement on the spiritual path, and can sometimes even keep us from the spiritual path. These kleshas, obstacles, negative emotions, and wrong mental ideas. So we do the 100-syllable mantra, and we go through the practice of Vajrasattva. That is the second. First, we start with the prostrations that give us the motivation and the faith and devotion that is needed to stay the course. And then we begin the practice of purification, and then the mandala practice to accumulate merit, which is very important on the path to awakening. And lastly, the Guru Yoga, and he will talk all about those things. There are 4 individual practices, standalone really practices, but are called the foundation practices because we have to have the foundation preliminary practices. We have to have these to really set the foundation. Just again, it's often talked about like building a house. You have to have a foundation that can support the building. So we're building our practice, and we have to have the foundation step by step by step to get the most out of it, or to get anything out of it, really. So these are called preliminary practices to begin really our journey on the path. So we are going to, we have people in, at our center and in Jacksonville in various stages of the Nundro practice. So it's important, and it serves as a catalyst, a thing to support your practice if you're doing Nundro, and to give you a little extra encouragement. And sometimes it takes that. So, when you take your refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, those are 3 big jewels. These are the 3 jewels. So we know the Buddha and his teaching, the Dharma, but the Sangha is also very important, and we can learn from the Sangha, and there's the noble Sangha, those enlightened beings, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, but we also have the community of like-minded people, such as you find in Jacksonville and in Gainesville, who work together and do their practices together to reinforce one another and to help them on their spiritual path to awakening. So all these are considered very important aspects on the path. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Lama.
All right, so I think that that's all. If there's no further questions, we can probably end here and we can dedicate the merit. Any other things that need to be said, Mike? Anything other announcements or anything else?
I had a
Just
question real quick. Is there any prerequisites for the empowerment for the Vajrasattva practice?
You have to have taken refuge.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you haven't taken refuge, refuge will be given this weekend because it is a prerequisite. And if you've studied and you're at the place now, I mean, have you taken refuge?
I have through Shambhala, and I had through another lineage. I have, yes.
Yeah, well, you're taking refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. So if you've taken refuge, you don't need to take it again. So you're fine. So, this is the Karma Kagyu lineage, but if you've taken it in another lineage, that is really not a problem. You have taken the same refuge, which is in the three jewels. And there are many different ways to do that. But once you take refuge, were you given a refuge name as well?
No, I wasn't.
That's usually done. Well, if you choose to take refuge with Lama Karma, he's a wonderful preceptor for refuge. That is fine. You can take it again, and there's a great blessing that goes with it. And if you are inclined to this lineage, then it is good. You'll be given a refuge name, which is also good. Usually it's like a new beginning. You're given a new name, like you're starting fresh. And this is the name that the Buddhas will know you by. So anyway, you're welcome to take refuge, but you will need, that is something that's required. When you say, is there a requirement? Yes, there is that requirement, but you don't really have to take it again. But
Okay.
I would ask Lama Karma about it, as he is the preceptor for the Vajrasattva. But from my point of view, I think it's fine, but I would ask his permission.
Okay, and I can do that remotely because I'm located in St. Augustine right now. I don't know if I'll be able to make it
No,
out there.
you'd have to be here. That won't be televised.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have to be here for that. Any empowerment like that. Our tradition, some people do it online, but Lama Karma is not going to be doing it that way. Okay, anything else? Any other questions or comments? Anything else that needs to be said, Mike?
Thank you, Lama. No, just that like I mentioned earlier, we will not have practice Saturday morning here at the KTC, but we'll be back on Tuesday as well. And I hope everyone can take advantage of the wonderful teaching by Lama Karma this weekend.
All right, so in your practice, after a practice session, always dedicate the merit for the benefit of beings and their ultimate enlightenment. We do that to gain merit. And so it is as if your practice is like a drop in the ocean of your merit, and it won't be lost, as opposed to not dedicating the merit, and is more like, if you don't offer it in that way, you don't get the result. And so if we say that we dedicate the merit to our enlightenment or until enlightenment is reached, that merit will continue until enlightenment is reached. That is in your bank account, your merit bank account, so to speak. That's a little crude, but that is kind of the idea, that generating merit that we do for the benefit of beings creates that kind of intention. And it is meritorious and leads to progress on the path. So we dedicate the merit. So we dedicate the merit for the benefit of all sentient beings and ultimately to establish all beings in Buddhahood. May all sentient beings be happy. May the lower realms be forever empty. May the prayers of all bodhisattvas abiding in any of the levels be fulfilled. Victorious over the four maras and the activity of all Buddhas. Karmapa, may your teachings, the essence of the teaching of the heart of the Dharma, fill and pervade all directions without ceasing, continuously increasing and auspiciously ever flourishing. May they bring good fortune, prosperity, and peace. We dedicate this merit. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention and being here. And hopefully I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Lama Losang. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you
Good.
for attending this evening. And Lama Losang visits us the second Tuesday of every month here at KTC Jacksonville online. So.
Well, I hope to see some of you here on Friday for our fundraiser, and certainly over the weekend with Lama Karma and his teaching. So have a good evening, and I'll see you later.
Thank you, Lama.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.